Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maximo and I'm here to take a little bit of a look at Spelunky. First things first though, chances are by the time this video goes up it will be December 25th, so Merry Christmas to all of you who celebrate that. And to the rest of you, well, find ways to have more fun in your life. So, this is a game that is known for being relatively controversial with me personally, because I didn't put it in my first top 100 list, and then I proceeded not to put it in my second top 100 list. And a lot of people ask me why, because this is a lot of people's, like, one of their favorite games on the Vita. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, it's because I don't like it. I've tried playing it multiple times, I've downloaded it to my Vita multiple times, I've even played it on other platforms like the PC, and I've never been able to really get my head around it for multiple reasons. I think the furthest I've ever made it is the Ice Caves, which is like stage 3, 1, 3, 2, etc. So, I have seen how the game ends though. I have watched like speed runs and seen how the game ends at the end of the day. Also, weird thing about this port, the menus and stuff in the background move when you move the Vita, because it detects the accelerometer. I apologize if it makes you feel quite ill. It seems like a completely needless detail. There are a nice amount of options. You can change your controls, remap them completely, and you can change your settings, including sound effects, music, the screen brightness. And you can also choose your damsel style, which is a touch I appreciate. I always go with dog, because who doesn't go with just dog? It's always fun to be able to rescue dogs instead of, like, perfectly capable human beings who might stand a chance of actually making it to the end of the level themselves, but, oh well. You've also got heads-up display style, so you can just, like, add and remove some extra details to the HUD if you want to. It's fine. You can play this version of the game ad hoc with other people. There's daily challenges, so you can compare yourself on the online leaderboards. And there's also a deathmatch mode, where you can just, like, fight other cave dwellers. And the leaderboards are there, but the leaderboards are kind of shit, because they've been hacked. They were hacked long ago. There is no point even trying, because some crazy bastard somehow managed to find their way to the end of the game in 2 milliseconds. Impossible, of course. Now, I will point out that this isn't, like, I am actually post-commentating over this footage, because I did start this video with live commentary, but I just found myself not really being able to continue on with it in that fashion, so I figured I'd just record what I could and just talk over the top of it. Which I'm starting to think I should start doing more regularly, because I think it makes the commentary better in the grand scheme of things. With that said though, I'm going to start talking about the game now, and the game itself is interesting. It is a sort of remake of an old arcade title called Spelunky, where you have to get to the bottom of a cave, avoiding various hazards and collecting as much treasure on the way as possible. This is basically the same concept, but it's procedurally generated from top to bottom, so there will be random gold, enemies, and items and traps placed around the place. And you need to try and avoid them all on the way down, while trying to collect some benefits and get to the bottom, fight the boss, and find your way out of there. There are also roguelike-y style things, like you've got extra bonus areas off to the side. You can choose your adventurer, but they're all cosmetic. None of them actually give you any special abilities, which is a little bit of a shame, but oh well. But yes, you have different things like different levels off to the side. You have things like a bonus boss that you can find, and if there are, of course, items that can give you a fair few different kinds of bonuses, anything from being able to fall down slowly to avoid fall damage, to extra weaponry, to stuff along those lines, you know? But it's nothing that compares to a game like The Binding of Isaac, for example, where all the items feel like they can very significantly change the game. It's mainly due to the fact that you're very limited as a character. You can only carry around one weapon at a time, for example, and it means you can't do things like carry damsels, so you're better off just trying to rely on your own devices when it comes to weaponry, unless you're trying to do something very specific. But yes, we've finally gone onto the game so I can actually talk about it. So it's a 2D platformer with a lot of finesse behind it. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong in this game, and a fair amount of them happened in this very video, because there's like 4 runs here, and it feels like almost every time that I managed to get myself killed thanks to the platforming, it was because something didn't react in the exact way that I expected it to. There's this annoying thing, for example, where your deployable ropes will... you won't stick to your deployable ropes unless you hold the up button and while you're falling down the rope. However, for some reason I managed to lock onto a ledge one time instead of the rope I was expecting to lock onto, and that got me killed. A fair few things in this game can get you killed immediately because you only have 4 hit points to start with. You can get 1 hit point by rescuing the damsel and taking them to the end of the stage. And that's it for your health recovery. And there are multiple enemies in this game that can do more than 1 health damage to you. And there are also multiple things in this game that can instantly kill you. You will see more than one of them in this footage. So the game is incredibly punishing. That seems to be the one thing about it that I really don't like. Even in comparison to other roguelikes like The Binding of Isaac, this game has multiple ways to instant kill you, and some of them can happen without you even realizing. So one of my favorite examples was that you can see how I'm picking up items and throwing them around, right? Well, this is something that happens. This is something you need to do quite regularly because there are things like arrow traps. Just for example, in this first stage, the traps do get more dangerous and more diverse as you go along, which is why I kind of dread playing this game any further than the jungle, because I unlocked the shortcut to the jungle, and even after repeated rounds of practice in the jungle, I still can't survive there particularly well. But anyway, back onto the story. So I was playing this, and I had a rock, and I threw the rock off screen because I was expecting there was an arrow trap there that I saw that I wanted to try and get rid of from as safely as distance as possible, because this game has a really annoying tendency to have objects that you throw bounce back at you and deal damage to you. If you throw a rock at a wall and it comes back and hits you in the head, you will take damage from it. It's a bit of a dick, but yeah, I threw this rock, set off this arrow trap. This arrow trap sailed right into a shop off screen that I hadn't seen at the time, which then proceeded to hit the shopkeeper in the face. Now, in shops, you can buy stuff, obviously, using gold that you find all around the levels. You've seen me pick up plenty of it so far. But if you so much as fart in the general direction of a shopkeeper, every single shopkeeper in the entire game not only becomes hostile, but runs around like Sonic the fucking Hedgehog and will beat the shit out of you if you so much as get even remotely close to them. So I managed to set off this damn shopkeeper while I was off screen, who then proceeded to immediately charge in, blast me in the face with a shotgun and kill me. This sort of shit happens all the time. Now, you can argue that you can just offset this risk by being careful, but sometimes things just go so pear-shaped in milliseconds. And it legitimately pisses me off sometimes. And it's the main reason why I really... Excuse me. Ugh. It's one of the main reasons that I don't like this game very much, because it's incredibly punishing. It can happen in a heartbeat, and you don't even realize sometimes when it's happened. Like being able to lock yourself out of a reasonable path. There are things, of course, that can help you with this. You have a limited supply of bombs and ropes, which explode and give you more things to climb on, respectively. But sometimes, even all of this stuff doesn't help. Like, even when you're facing off against things like monsters, it can be a real pain in the ass to deal with, because you end up, like, you know, look at this, one wrong jump. One wrongly timed jump and it got me killed. That really frustrates me, if I'm being perfectly honest, because it just seems to happen to me a lot. In fact, it happens to me a couple more times in this video. I guess the lesson should be, stop going for the damn golden idol. You're not Indiana Jones, but still, it's the platforming, really, that does it to me. But let me get back onto what I was saying. You do have some disposable resources, but sometimes you'll just be clean out of them and you'll have to take the hard way down. And that can really cripple you a lot of the time. It also doesn't help with certain things like attacking enemies, because your whip... Now, pay very close attention here. You can see how the world is built on a grid. You can see how that there's squares that make up everything. The terrain, the spawning of enemies and gold, and stuff like that, right? You can see it just by paying close attention. Your whip, your default weapon, only reaches one square, and even then it can be a bit finicky. So when you're trying to fight off enemies, you don't get that many options. You do have the ability to carry around things like weapons, but... Also, yeah, you can see there what a bit of a dick the game's physics are. The game threw the bottom half of a treasure chest at me, which hit me and hurt me, because it really does suck like that. But as I was saying, you can carry along weapons, but it will remove your ability to carry anything. So you won't be able to carry along rocks to set off traps, you won't be able to carry damsels, you won't be able to carry keys for treasure chests. So I find weapons to be not really that useful, especially when a couple of them don't even extend beyond that one hit range, which is overly frustrating. So you just find yourself in a situation where you don't want to carry along weapons and you've got very little in the way of attack power. So you end up wanting to do Goomba Stomping more, because strangely enough, Goomba Stomping is more effective. There are enemies that counter it later on, of course, but for the majority of enemies, being able to Goomba Stomp them, see what I mean by having to press up when you're on the rope? It seems like a really natural thing to want to grab the rope when you're falling down or like that, but apparently not. But yeah, the most effective way to kill enemies, at least early on, is Goomba Stomping, because it's easier to jump on them, it's less dangerous, and your whip just isn't that effective against most enemies. Combine this with the game throwing a few extra shitty situations at you, like... Damn, brain kind of went dead on me there. That's what happens when you have to try and record something more than once in one day. But yeah, the game just tends to throw you in shitty situations a lot. And you just have to wonder why it feels the need to be so harsh. Like getting crushed by a boulder. I can understand doing that a fair amount of damage, but having it instantly kill you is a bit of a dick. I can understand giant spiders doing a fair amount of damage to you, but they can seriously kill you without a second thought. There are a lot of weird, like, ways to die in this game, like as I said before. Throwing something to trigger something that fires off screen, that gets you into trouble and gets you killed by massively overpowered shopkeepers. It's helped out by the fact that most games are usually quite short, and you can get straight back in by hitting the square button pretty much right away. Like, see how quickly I died there? I don't know how I was supposed to get through that situation. I'm really not sure how. They actively give you a parachute, so the game kind of knows it was being a bit of a dick there, but man... It is helped by the fact that you can restart very quickly, but after just dying and dying and dying and dying and dying again to lots of traps, tons of monsters or anything like that, it just starts to get really frustrating after a while. And it's not helped out by the fact that the game doesn't really have that much in the way of the proc gen to really help it out. It's got very, like... By the standards of most, like, roguelikes, it's got very little in the way of, like, depth of anything, especially if you're trying to go... Especially if you're having trouble even getting through the mines. You find yourself in a really annoying position where you're going through the same tricks and traps again, but one slip up, you're dead, you're done, and then you have to go through the same set of stuff again. There's very little in the way of items. You'll see a fair amount of them when you first run through. There isn't anything that can particularly surprise you after the first few things. Like, first few encounters. So I'm just trying to think of what the hell I plan on doing about this damsel here. Because, again, it's not a very good situation. But yeah, you've got overwhelming difficulty combined with a lack of variety. Very little in the way of items, very little in the way of things that will actively change the game, and it all ends up feeling relatively samey after a while, especially if you're having trouble getting through just the mines. I can't even imagine how hard the jungle, the ice caves, or I can't remember what the 4th stage is, but like I haven't played them in a while, so I don't remember. But yeah, it doesn't give you that much in the way of reasons to come back to it unless you're really into the gameplay style, which is overly punishing platforming with a sort of proc gen bend, but not really. It just kind of feels like you get different stages every time. It almost feels like a game that would be massively improved by having a preset set of stages, like the original arcade game it was based on. But yeah, the levels just feel relatively samey after a while. I got lucky there. I meant to try and jump, but it just didn't seem to want to work out for me. And the platforming just seems to be like one of the... Like, the platforming feels good sometimes. Like, don't get me wrong. Being able to do like neat little tricks like dropping down ledge by ledge in order to not take fall damage down a long pit. Being able to do running jumps across huge gaps. Being able to just get out of the way of an idol, of a boulder that's rolling towards you because you took an idol. It's all it all runs relatively smoothly, but then some things really start to conflict with it. Like, as I said before, not being able to get on a rope when you really, really mean to. Getting stuck on random ledges. Having to fall like distances like that and then having to go right back up, find another thing, and then find a thing like an arrow or a pot or anything to drop in front of those arrow traps or anything like that. It feels like it's trying to be fast and pleasant and enjoyable, but at the same time mean you have to take it really slow, otherwise you will get the absolute pants shot off you. And it just seems to be a bit of a duality going on that I just can't really find much enjoyment out of. Especially in a game that will very easily, that is very happy to punish you if you so much as make one mistake, and then makes it relatively easy to make those mistakes, not due to a fault of your own, but due to how the game interpreted your actions via trying to get onto a rope, or trying to get over a ledge, or even just timing a jump like a couple of milliseconds wrong, and completely missing the ledge that you very easily would have been able to get to otherwise, but no, you fell right through because you just barely timed the jump wrong. It's just frustrating to me, personally. And I'm the sort of person who likes The Binding of Isaac and Dead Cells and even more traditional ones. Like, Shy Ren was like number 4 on my best Vita games list, for Christ's sake. Like, I can't say I don't like this style of game. It's just the sort of... It's even more hardcore than most of these games I play, and I can't find my way around it. I understand the mechanics. I don't think I'm that bad of a player. It just seems like every time I try and do something even remotely complex, the game just decides, oh no, I'm going to throw this roadblock in your way and you're going to instantly die. That seems to be my overall, like, experience with Spelunky as a game. And I don't like it. I don't like the difficulty. I feel like it could be tweaked a little bit, especially for this beginning area, since it seems to be, like, surprisingly difficult to get through. I think the platforming could use a little bit more work. Just a little. Mainly due to the whole... Due to things like not being able to make it up ledges and having to hold on to ropes properly, and things that seem so simple can be thrown off kilter by even the slightest delay in your button press. And, like, even that, just managing to land on the edge of those bloody spikes was enough to instantly kill me. That is just, that feels like a dick move. It looks good, sounds good, like, it was well received for its presentation back on the Xbox 360, and the same can be said here. It did used to have some performance problems, especially when you went into a fog-filled stage. I can't say if those performance problems are actually a thing anymore. I know they did put out a patch to try and correct some of them. I think that this version of the game actually has a zoomed-in perspective, though, which might be contributing to some of my problems, like being able to throw things at stuff that would regularly be on screen, but due to the fact that I'm playing on Vita, that's just not the case. I don't like it. I think it's too hard. I think it's a little clunky, a little bit too clunky for its own good. And it doesn't have very many reasons to keep me from coming back because the item layout is... Well, the items that you can get are very limited. The proc gen starts feeling really repetitive. And while it is quick to restart, having to go through the same levels over and over and over again does eventually wear on you. Even if you can unlock a shortcut, it means that you'll just spend more time dying in those, trying to figure out the traps and the best way around them. I know this is one of those sorts of games where, like, the best players can get through it without getting hit in, like, a fraction of the time that I can, so it basically just boils down to get good, son, but I've played a lot of it, and I have very little reasons to get good, son. That seems to be the major thing about it. In comparison to The Binding of Isaac, where it feels like I have a chance, it feels like it could all be snapped away from me with like a snap of the fingers in this one. And that's just it for me personally. I find myself not enjoying it because of that. I'm going to let the rest of this video play out for you. This run is the most immensely depressing run of them all because it was going so well, and then another bloody platforming quirk ends up getting me killed again, so yeah, don't ask. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.